This discussion is going to be partly a review of one episode of Park Street Under, but it's also a plea for information and ideally more episodes. This show is so elusive. It's not even on IMDb. There's a very small Wikipedia article, but I can find no evidence of it on IMDb at all, which I find to be very bizarre. I've never known a TV show to not be on there. But the reason I wanted to watch this is because allegedly the show claimed, or people involved with the show claimed, that Cheers, arguably the best TV show of all time, was a rip-off of Park Street Under. Both of them are about bars set in Boston, and the owner of Park Street Under was a former Red Sox player, which is what we get with Sam Malone. And I thought, okay, I really want to see what this is like, partly because I want to see if they are similar, but also if they are similar, I love Cheers, there's a good chance I love Park Street Under. And my quest wasn't very successful. And then somebody sent me a link on Twitter to an article about Park Street Under. And in that article, there was an embedded YouTube video from Northeast Historic Film, who were, I think this article was 2 years old, and they were going to be digitizing Park Street Under. Now, this one video is unlisted on their YouTube, so I'm really glad it was actually embedded in that article because I can then find it on YouTube. I will link it in the description here so you can check it out. But this is the only episode that I have found. This is the only footage at all that I have found of this show. I don't know if Northeast Historic Film were able to digitize more, if they've got more unlisted. If they do, I'd really love to see them. But this one, and when I started watching it, I didn't know whether this was the first episode or not. But actually, after doing some digging, it definitely isn't. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. But I would love to see more of this show because I did like this episode. The episode, according to Northeast Historic Film, is called Nick Buys the Bar, or at least that's the description they've given. If anybody has any footage from this show, I would love to see it. I haven't fallen in love with it the way I did with Cheers, but I actually genuinely enjoyed this. And there are some similarities with Cheers, there are some differences, there are maybe some characters that I think, yeah, I can see potential similarities, but it definitely has a very different feel. I don't know if Cheers was inspired by this, but either way, I think we can safely say Cheers has the biggest legacy. So, Nick Buys the Bar isn't actually the beginning episode, but I found it to be a really good introduction, and it could have been, because Augie is selling the bar, and I will link to some articles in the description of this that explain a little bit about who Augie is and kind of where the show was at this point. Reading those articles really helped me to get an understanding of what was going on this stage in the show. So I had some context for this random episode. And Nick DeMarco is coming to view the bar to buy it, and the people at the bar don't want Augie to sell it, so they decide to put on these really annoying characters, these really annoying personality traits to try and ward off the buyer. And I thought that was really entertaining, even as somebody who doesn't know those characters. But had I had a deeper emotional relationship with those characters, I probably would have found it even more funny to see these beloved characters acting in these different ways. I will say, Fitzy, I took to straight away. I think he is fantastic. There's a little bit of Coach in him, or maybe there's a little bit of Fitz in Coach, and I would love to dig more into that character. I think he's really entertaining. I'd love to see what else they do with him. The one thing that I did notice that was quite different to Cheers, because, well, I was watching it with the intention of comparing it, is that the setting, the set design, isn't as good as Cheers. With Cheers, immediately your eyes go to the bar. The bar is the centre of the room, the centre of the set. Most of the time, the action revolves around the bar. This one, the bar didn't seem to be that prominent. We moved a lot to the tables and to different parts of the room, and I feel like that's where Cheers really succeeded, by establishing this focal point immediately by establishing that focal point. It said the bar is where the action is, and I guess more importantly, at the center of the bar is Sam Malone. And at least this episode, obviously I can't, it might not have been like this to begin with, but based on this episode, I didn't get a sense that the location was its own person. Whereas with Cheers, the bar, I feel like the set is its own person. And I didn't get that here. But again, this is not the first episode, and I am just judging that purely on this one episode. But either way, I enjoyed it. I think it was quite funny. The performances were really great. And even though it wasn't the first episode, because Nick DeMarco, well, it was an introduction for Nick DeMarco, he was meeting the other characters for the first time. That gave me a chance to get to know those characters as well. So it worked rather well. I will link everything in the description. And, well, I thank Northeast Historic Film for uploading this. I really, really hope they were able to digitize more, and I hope that we get to see it, they get to share it. I don't know if they've kept this unlisted for copyright reasons, or I don't know. But either way, it's just so bizarre that it's not even on IMDb. I can't get my head around that. I have never, in my many, many years of watching many thousands of films and TV shows, I've never come across that. So if anybody has any information at all, please feel free to share it. If anybody knows where I can see more of this, I genuinely would like to see it. I don't want to say Cheers is better. It is, but I'm biased. I'm in love with Cheers. I've seen one episode of this, but while the concepts are similar, at least based on this episode, I don't feel like the shows are that similar. I don't know. It's kind of like saying if you ripped off Friends by having another TV show about a group of friends, just because the basic premise is the same, it doesn't mean the rest of it is going to be the same. But I can't really say that for a fact without watching more, and I really, really hope that one day I do get to see more.